Why won't you die?
Hey guys, and welcome back. So, there was supposed to be a new episode of Jetpack Retro today covering a big topic, but the topic is pretty big and has a lot to say, and I just think he needs a bit more time and a bit more writing to be fully finished. So in the meantime, I decided to do another one of these deep dive videos where we're going to talk about another topic that I have been thinking about for a long while. And sadly, it's the idea of revivals. For some reason, we now live in a world where revivals are not possible. Every time a show or something we love tries to come back, it always flops or doesn't feel the same or feel right. So I thought today we are going to look into 3 examples of 3 revivals that happened of 3 shows that I love so much and show you how they flopped, failed, and how they are horrible, and maybe go into why this happens. Because upon further realization and more thinking within this topic, I've come to realize that there actually is a big reason why revivals, sadly, they don't work, and I don't think they ever will. So let's hop into it with my first example.
Dude, that's a 3-story drop.
I don't care, I'm going for it.
Let's start off with a real easy one to explain why it was a flop, and one that, should have been obvious to anybody was not going to work. I love Clone High. I remember watching it years ago and being amazed with how well done of a satirical comedy on dramas it was. It was a funny joke making fun of serious shows like soap operas and the such, and teen dramas, but told through the really creative point of view of historical figures throughout history that we have had. With such amazing characters such as Joan of Arc, Abraham, JFK, and the GOAT himself, Gandhi. This show, just like with undergrads, has been begged and asked to come back for years. MTV gets messages all the time about these two, about how it should come back. And then finally, by some stroke of genius, years later, we finally were allowed to get Clone High back. But oh boy, you guys just couldn't do this right, could you? The Clone High revival was a huge flop due to the fact that, besides the obvious fact of Gandhi is just gone now, they for some reason ended up flipping it into some sort of a parody of itself. The original show, was silly and had funny moments, but the moments the show did before were funnier. There was a punchline or something that made it make sense. There was a tone. Like when Abraham first lays his arm on the wall, but accidentally breaks it through the glass of the trophy case to impress little drip of blood, and that was the joke. He just sits there awkwardly, not knowing what to do. But then we go to the new season, and the joke is just intense gore and mutilation, or over-the-top sex humor with JFK, which doesn't fit his character in the slightest. Yeah, he had lots of sex jokes, but that wasn't the character. He was also a jock that had the same egotisticalness and the same way that the actual John Kennedy spoke, which is what made him so funny. But now they just turn him into a sex freak. One thing I realized with these revivals is that whenever a revival comes back, they always will only come back in Flanderization, where it's just bare bones writing. In this comeback, hey, Abraham being obsessed with the girl in the last season, and now he's obsessed with how he was obsessed with Cleo, but now he's obsessed with Joan of Arc. That's his entire character now. Just obsessive psycho loser that's obsessed with her, even though that wasn't his character before. Yeah, he was obsessed with Chloe, but there were other parts to his character as well. The way he spoke, the natural charisma he had within himself of being a leader, the way he would work on certain projects and always do the right thing no matter what. But in this new one, just weird creep that doesn't get anything in the future. A John F. Kennedy, hey, those sex jokes he used to make? That is just his character now, nothing more. And then we add these brand new characters that do not at all fit. Every character in the original series actually looked believable. Every character in the original one looked, this is how I would imagine these historical figures if they were just in the early 2000s. They look like their original character that they are based on. They look like the original historical figure, just if they had their clothes updated, or maybe a bit tweaks to their hair and stuff to fit with the times. But they still felt like the original characters. I'll be honest with you, I don't know who the fuck these people are. I don't know who they are, I didn't get anything from them, and they might be based on some historical figure that I might know, but for the fuck of me, I can't remember due to the fact that they did not act like who they're based on. The other ones I could. Hell, in the original series, there was even jokes that only worked if you knew the historical figure that was saying the joke. Like, for example, when Joan of Arc made that one artsy movie saying that she loves Abraham, and the only person who got it was the guy in the back who was the guy who invented the type of film that she made. That's clever. That's funny. But in this new one, the joke is just lol, bruh, internet, social media. That is all the humor in this new season. No more character development, no more socializing, no more these guys trying to just figure out and understand who they are in this new time period. Just social media. Oh, and we have this random science whoever bitch that just, for some reason, just takes over, even though the original guy in his robot was just 10 times funnier and had way more charisma than her. And on top of that, the whole storyline with Abraham and Joan and the beautiful story we were building in the background just gets tossed out the fucking window. Sorry if I seem a bit upset when talking about this first example, but it's just annoying. Like, I don't know what this show's problem was. And you can tell. I bet if I were to search, that majority of the writing staff on this was not people from the original. And if there are a few people from the original there, dude, what, you get dropped on your head or something? Sadly, for all this and more, Clone High fails on every level. Yes, I'm well aware that the revival even got a second season, but like I give a fuck at this point. Clone High is dead, it's been cancelled again, and you know what, after seeing this, it should have stayed cancelled if we're being honest.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go build my own theme park with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the park.
Oh no, my sweet, sweet boy. Look what they did. Look how they massacred my boy. Futurama will always be one of the greatest adult comedies of all time. This show will always be on my list of favorite shows of all time. Not just cartoons, favorite show period of all time. Futurama is so beautifully done in every regard. One, it is the best show Matt Groening's ever made. Yeah, that's right, I'll say it. What, you want to step on the podium and try to slap me off with your It's the greatest show that Matt Groening's ever made in his entire catalog. It is... The reason why is because it has the most passion out of all of them. This show perfectly parodies the sci-fi genre and also creates a world of its own with its own characters and rules and a world you want to actually get to know and learn with time. Every time something happens, they explain it flawlessly. Like when they explain the way the money system works now, great. When they explain the way travel works in this world, hilarious. When they explain how the simplest things, such as even just wanting to kill yourself, is now an actual pushed marketable thing that you could just go to a booth and do now, it's so perfect. It becomes this great sci-fi comedy of grabbing the things that we already joke about and that we already go through in our daily lives, such as depression and suicidal things, and creates it as part of the actual system and the actual system that they live by now. It actually finds a way to market all these things, and even down to the fact of just they had to build New York over New York again. They now have mutants that they outlaw just to keep their world looking nice. We now face aliens here and there. In the future, there's no such thing as immigrants anymore. Aliens from space themselves are the immigrants that have to go through immigrant issues. It's such a well-done evolution of the original formula and the way we live that it's just shocking that it can fall this low. Now, yes, I won't lie. When the show was canceled and revived on Comedy Central, those seasons also weren't as good as the original 4-season run. But either way, it wasn't this bad. Even when I take a look at the garbage episodes of the Comedy Central days, those days weren't that bad. I mean, worst we got was Ingata Dalila. That episode is genuinely fucking horrible. Watch my top 7 worst Futurama episodes of all time if you want more on what I think are the bad episodes from that era. But besides that, it wasn't horrible. The story still worked, things still connected. Yeah, there might have been a flop or two here and there, but they still kept the heart of who the characters were in the end. Fry isn't just an idiot, Fry is a soft, lovable soul that came from such a hard family and environment that he's always trying to push and holds dear to the sci-fi things that he loved, making the future a dream come true to him. Bender may be an alcoholic show-off robot, but his main focus from the start to now has always been that he feels lonely in the way that he is. When he met Fry, he was genuinely shocked to know that Fry wanted a robot as a friend, and he was even going to kill himself when Fry found him. Fry ended up finding a way to give him hope again, and give him this whole new life with friends, an actual job to do, people to hang out with that cares about him. Hell, the professor himself even stated that the delivery business they work at is more of a family instead of a business. And then we have the beautifully told story in the background of Fry just trying to be with Leela, help her go through her problems due to the fact that they both match. A guy out of his time period who's alone and trying to understand, meeting a girl with one eye that, due to things that I'm not going to say because they end up doing a twist with it later in the show itself so brilliantly, was always treated differently, never had a family or friends of her own, and slowly bonds with a person who's alone just like her without even knowing it. The show is a beautiful strike of what you could do with an entire genre, and how you can tell with every bit of writing in the show, everything they do, they are loving every second. There's passion in this, and you can feel it. But just like all good things, it always must end. Whenever somebody truly cares about something, that's when the studio is going to cancel it. And then here we are now. The really horrible Futurama series. I actually have a script written and put away. I was actually going to do a Jetpack Retro episode fully going into my thoughts of the Futurama version of Futurama, but I decided to instead scrap it and just instead finish off my retrospective with my top 7 worst episodes, and chose to release that on the day Futurama was released instead, thinking that that was just more fun and interesting to make and watch instead of just me talking about how this new season does not work. The first Futurama season is just bad. It completely, once again, what a shock, flanderizes the characters and forgets who they are. Fry is genuinely the consistency of a piece of cardboard in the rain. He has no thoughts anymore for himself and just sits there and does whatever. Leela is just, I'm a strong girl that's trying to know things, and that is it. Bender is just a dick with nothing else attached, and he acts like an idiot now. The professor now invents things that goes against his own philosophy and doesn't even make sense. When he built that one time machine, he literally would never do that. He said in the episode when he builds a time machine where they can only go forward in time, that going back in time is something he would never fully commit to due to the fact that it is extremely dangerous. And when he built the watch and meanwhile, it turned out he was right, it is. The professor now builds things that make no sense or do not fit his character in the slightest. He even ends up building contraptions that he would never do. They end up now, every episode of this new season is now only about what's popular. Every episode was just a parody of something. Every episode was just, hey, you like cryptocurrency? Here you go. I know we're in the future and we're millions of years after cryptocurrency, so this makes no goddamn sense in the slightest. And we've already built our own community with our own rules, but fuck it, cryptocurrency exists all of a sudden. And then the episode that made me throw in the towel. The COVID episode. What in the fuck do you mean you have your own type of COVID? How? The common cold doesn't exist anymore. Did we forget the fact that there was a whole episode where they all went into biohazard level quarantine when Fry had a common cold? Showing that sickness is just not a thing anymore in the future, and that the common cold died off years ago with other viruses? Did the writers just, it doesn't make sense. The show genuinely feels like it was written by a team of people who have never watched an episode of Futurama in their life. The tone is off, the jokes are off, and even the storylines don't fit. It feels like you're making up crap just because you want to throw in what's popular, even though Futurama was never about what's trendy. Futurama works because Futurama is its own thing. It takes place in its own time. It takes place in its own world. Futurama takes place millions of years into the future, or Futurama takes place 1,000 years into the future, where all this shit that we're facing now is already said and done and gone. They have their own things to deal with. They have their own problems they gotta go through. And that's what makes it work. But when you do this, it makes it feel not like Futurama anymore. It makes it feel like I'm watching some common sitcom. And yes, I know that recently they released a second season to this revival, and I'm sorry, I can't put myself to watch it. I can't. I thought of it, I'm not doing it, I can't do it. I just outright from the start chose to ignore this new season of the revival. I'm not watching it. In my opinion, I agree with the many who say that Meanwhile was a beautiful finale and should have ended there. Meanwhile ended the series perfectly. It let us see this world. It let us see this world in a beautiful frozen portrait, letting us get a moment to look at the beauty that was this work of art. That was this world, that lets us truly enjoy it and see for what it is. As we finally get to see Fry and Leela spend the future together they always wanted as they slowly go back to the start. Jumping into that beautiful Futurama intro portal to go back to the beginning of the series all over again. It ended beautifully, it ended perfectly, and it even ended on a loop for us to go through this adventure one more time. And you know what? It should have just ended there. Sometimes, no matter how good something is, it needs to end, and there's no shame in that.
Because I'm a woman.
Good.
With a woman's needs.
Louder.
And a woman's urges.
Alright, now I was going to stop after the Futurama example because it was the most recent and I had the most to say about it. But I wanted to put in an example to make sure I covered all areas basically. The last two examples were more recent examples of a revival that came out during these times with all these annoying trending things and all this popular stuff, and those last two examples are examples that were ruined because they're trying to follow the trends of today, and that's what ended up causing it to die. But now I'm going to bring up an example of a show I love that came out years ago and came out before this time, and that is Arrested Development. Arrested Development is just funny. Like, I literally did not watch this show until 2 years ago. 2 years ago was my first time viewing this show for the first time because I heard a lot of good things from it and people telling me that, well, if you liked It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, watch this. So I did, and they weren't wrong. Arrested Development is funny, it's well written, it's smart, the jokes hit you with all sorts of levels to their tone. I mean, the storyline with the main character and his son with Michael and George Michael, I mean, it's so beautifully well done and I love every aspect of it. This show truly is a perfect example of breaking the mold of the era of annoying sitcoms from back then and deciding to shatter and flip that mold to instead be something more than that. To be a show that I can actually take seriously and even get invested in. And then, if I'm being honest, it ended beautifully. It ends at season 3, and due to the show's poor ratings and being run by a really stupid, incompetent studio that knew jack shit about what people liked about the show was given one last season and then the plug was pulled, which the staff, the writers, and the entire team were a-okay with. The creator himself just decided, you know what, fine, then season 3 is the finale and we're gonna end it here. And you know what, it's a beautiful finale. I like the way it ends. I love the whole ending of Michael just going, you know what, I'm just gonna leave with my son and we're gonna live our own life and we're sick of this family shit. Just let them crash and burn on the boat, and I'm alright with that. And then they just drive off to the sunset with a beautiful, peaceful ending. The end. Every time I recommend this show to anybody, or even when I chose to rewatch it with my own family to see their opinions on it, I, every time, do the same thing. Watch from season 1 to 3, stop there. Because if you go after season 3 to the Netflix revival, then it ruins it. Yeah, I remember when I first finished the series, I binged through the whole thing on Netflix. And I remember I was happy. When I saw that there was a revival and the whole story of it and Netflix brought it back, I was at first excited and happy to find out that this show wasn't over and I had a lot more content to enjoy. Then I watched it and oh boy, I don't know what happened here. The show feels out of place, and the same with the last two examples we just gave. The characters feel off. The characters now feel like flanderized versions of themselves where they just do things that they would never do in the original series. Michael, just out of the blue, just fights with his son and could care less about his son now. They end up hating each other to the point where they actually end up hurting each other physically, which is something that would never happen in the original series. And then we have the family just tossing who's arrested, not knowing what to do anymore. The mom's arrested. You know what? The brother's arrested. Is he? I don't know. Just finish the show. And there was no vision here. They start just making up story plots and throwing them out of the blue for no reason. We got a gay story plot with BoJack over here, Will Arnett. We have some random murder theory that Buster could have murdered somebody out of the blue. We have Michael doing nothing but being a dick to his son and fighting him the rest of the show. And I do not know what happened here. The show feels like it just collapsed on itself and didn't know what to do. The Netflix seasons genuinely flail, confused of what they are, and are trying their hardest to know what they are now due to the fact that the show ended perfectly. This is an example of people that decided to bring something that people loved back with no vision or idea of how to bring it back. This feels like it was loosely just stitched together and thrown together with no rhyme or reason, and they just did not know what to do. And sadly, yeah. So if you watch this show, only watch season 1 to 3 and call it quits from there. I wanted to throw this one in because this is a much more older example showing that even the new time period isn't 100% to blame for why these revivals fail. Even back then, these people for some reason did not know how to continue their shows or bring it back. Which leads me to my theory on why this happened and why I think you can't do a revival. When I decided to finally put my foot down and fully think about and theorize why I think these revivals don't work, I found a few pieces within the examples I gave you before and the reason why. As I said before, for some reason when the show comes back, it feels like the people who worked on it before just have never worked on it. It feels like it's done by new people or people that just do not understand what made the original one great. Which led me to my theory. The theory is revivals cannot work. It's just not possible, sadly. A revival can't work because the same drive that made the show beautiful to begin with isn't there anymore. Years pass, people change, you get old. And I 100% do not doubt that either two things happen when a revival happens. Either one, you get a completely brand new team of writers that don't know a thing about this show or just weren't there from the original, so they don't understand and they just write what they think works and what they think is funny. Which, as we saw with Futurama and Clone High, it just doesn't work. You need that original voice or it flops. But the other side of that, and to show that even if you have the original writers and original creator on board, it still will fail. Because we're talking about a creator or a writing team that hasn't written this in years. Which came to my next theory. When you get the original staff back, they're not going to be the same or have the same passion they used to. When Matt Groening and his writing team first worked on Futurama, I can imagine that there was this huge sense of excitement. There was this giddiness, this excitement, this passion that flowed into it. You know what I mean? When you come up with a brand new idea and you immediately start to think about how to make it great and it's a clean slate where we could just go nuts and create something new and that passion's there. But when years pass by and the show has turned old by this point and your own opinions and your views on it have also turned old, are you going to care that much about it anymore? I mean, when the original creator or writers come back, they're not going to know what to do. When they come back, that passion they had for the show before, that excitement, that drive is now gone. Just some old memory in the past that they've just moved past and just thrown in the trash. I can imagine that even with bringing Matt Groening back, even if you brought these people back, I mean, Arrested Development's a perfect example of that. When you bring the creator back, they just start swinging for the fences and just writing whatever because in their minds, I already did the heavy lifting of making people love the show years ago. It already has a fan base. I can now rest easy and just make what I want now. But I'm sorry, if you're going to go in with that mindset, then just create a new show at that point. If your new ideas are different and you don't have the same passion or drive that you used to have for the show anymore, then at that point, just leave it dead. Sometimes you are just meant to let something die and just leave it that way. Sometimes you'll have a Futurama on one hand that had a beautiful goodbye and went away in a perfect loop, or you'll have a Clone High that may have ended on a cliffhanger and may have stopped on a point that you would love to see finish, but was a fun ride while it lasted and is something we can always look back on and share with friends and enjoy no matter how many years pass by. Or maybe you're like an Arrested Development, where you might have only had 3 seasons, and you might not have had the best treatment while working on them, but you were able to softly say goodbye and end it off on a beautiful note showing your passion and your care for the series. Saying goodbye is not always a bad thing. Sometimes shows just die or get canceled, and that's that. And you know what? From what I've seen here today and from what I've been seeing happening, I'm alright with that. I'm alright with letting these shows just be what they were and just staying in the past. Because if not, I get a Clone High in my hands. And you know what? I don't want to see another show I love go through that again. So, let's hope that the Undergrads movie, no joke, the Undergrads movie is my last beam of hope on these revivals ever being able to be pulled off. So, let's hope that that one is the rare exception. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. This was a more personal and deeper topic that I've been really wanting to research and discuss for a while now. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys got something out of this and you guys understood what I'm trying to say here. Like always, write in the comments your own opinion. If you liked these revivals, that's fine. All for it. Power to you if you like these revivals and they work for you. Sadly, they didn't work for me. And also let me know which revivals I might have missed here that you think would have been good examples, or that you think were actually good and know how to do a revival. And like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Also, write down any other topics you want me to talk about, or even some episodes of BoJack you want me to give a deep dive on. And I'll see you in the next episode of Jetpack Retro. Peace.